So, welcome all in PCC 204 Data Structures Laboratory in second year computer engineering. We want to study the assignment from group A is write a Python program to manage the borrowing records of books in library and implement the following functionalities like compute the average number of books borrowed by all library members, find the books with the highest and lowest number of borrowings in the library, count the number of members who have not borrowed any books denoted by a borrow count of 0, and display the most frequent borrowed books, that is the mode of borrow counts. And after performing, determine the time and space complexity of each operation. Basically, in this assignment, what we want to implement is we want to implement the relationship between students, or we can say members of the library, and books. So member borrows book, so library members basically borrows the books. Here library member is one object, book is another object, and borrow is the relationship between these two entities. Now we want to implement this relationship. So when we are going to implement this relationship using Python programming language, first of all we have to store all the information related with the users or library members inside the data structure. After that we have to store all the information related with the books inside the data structures, and then we are borrowing the records, means library members borrowing the records, borrowing the books from the library. That transaction you have to store somewhere. So how we are going to implement this inside the Python? As we know, the library is one of the entity where all these operations are going to be carried out. So inside a Python programming, first of all we are going to create one class whose name is class MyLibrary, and every class is having an default constructor, and that we are declaring inside the Python, that is def underscore init underscore self. What is the use of this constructor? As we all know that we use constructor to initialize the object of that particular class. Now here some of the students are saying that, sir, this code is very lengthy and we are not able to understand it. Can you make it simpler? Can you explain it step by step, how user is going to be stored, how books information is going to be stored, and then after that how that borrowed relationship is going to be happen inside this programming. So step by step, if we are explaining it, it will be better for us to understand it. So accordingly, here inside the constructor I am taking only users dictionary to store user related information in it, right? And after that I am writing one member function, that is add users, to store all the user related information inside users dictionary. Here we are taking that users dictionary as a data structure to hold or to organize the data related with the users, or we can say the library members. Now accordingly, here I am defining one function, that is add underscore users, and I am passing three parameters, that is self, user ID, and username. As we know that self acts as this pointer when whichever the object is going to be called that particular member function. Like here I have created one object, that is lib1 is equals to my library. Now when I am calling this add user function over here, at that time what will happen? The address, object address, is going to be stored inside the self, and accordingly inside this object, that inside this user dictionary, all the user ID and username is going to be stored. So we are using this add user function to add the user related information inside this users dictionary, right? So how we are going to add it? So what is the logic behind this add underscore users function? Here we are checking that here we are passing the user ID and username to this function at the time of calling, and we are checking that either that particular user ID is present inside this users dictionary. So how we are checking this, how we are writing this? If user ID in self.users, if that particular user ID is already exist inside the users dictionary or users dictionary data structure, then what message we are going to display? We are displaying that user with user ID, and here with the help of banana expression we are displaying that user ID over here at the runtime already exists in the library. and this print is what formatted output. This F indicates the formatted output. So once this user is exist, we are displaying this message that is user with user ID already exists in the library. If that particular user ID is not present inside the library or inside this users dictionary, then we are going to the else part, and here we are adding the information, key value information in the pair inside this user dictionary. So user ID is acts as a key and username acts as a value, right? So in the form of key value pair, we are storing this information, user ID and username, inside this users dictionary. And after that, we are displaying this message that is users with user ID added successfully in the MyLibrary. Now after that, we are displaying all these information, whatever the information, user related information we are storing inside these users. We are displaying this information using the show underscore users function. So if self.users means the whichever the object is calling that show users method, and inside this user dictionary, if not single record is present inside this library, what will happen? We are displaying that not a single user added inside the MyLibrary. And if the users are there, user information is there, member information is there, what we are going to display? Members inside the MyLibrary are as follow. And then by using the for loop for x in self.users, here x acts as an ID, so user ID x, username self.users x, we are displaying the key value pair information inside the show users function. Now let's create an object of this MyLibrary class. Here to simplify this, I am just taking one constructor. Inside this constructor, I want to store only user related information. That's why I am just declaring one empty dictionary whose name is users, and by using add user function, writing this logic, I am adding the information inside this user dictionary, and by using show functions, I am displaying whatever the users are going to be stored inside this user dictionary. Those all information I am going to show here with the help of show user function. Now after creating these two member function and one constructor, I am creating the object of MyLibrary class, right? So how to create an object of MyLibrary class? This is the syntax: lib1 is equals to MyLibrary. Now here I want to add these 4 users information inside this users dictionary or inside this MyLibrary class, right? Inside this MyLibrary. So what information I want to store? User information. 11 is the user ID, Ram is the name of user, 12 is the user ID, Sham is the name of the user. Once again, I am taking, for checking this user ID is already exist inside the library. For that purpose, I am taking this case 11 is the user ID and Jairam is the name, and after that I am taking another user ID that is 13 and the username is what? Rohit. So now how many students information I want to store inside this users dictionary? So I want to store 4 student records inside this user dictionary. So 4 times I have to call this function add user function. So accordingly I have written over here leave1 dot add users 11 and Ram. Whenever first times I am going to call this function, control comes over here and immediately 11 and username is Ram is going to be added inside the user dictionary. Accordingly 12, 11 and 13, when I am going to add these 11 Jairam, what will happen? I will get the message that is user with user ID 11 already exists inside the MyLibrary. Then without calling the show user function, how the information is going to be stored inside the user dictionary, that we are just looking it by default by writing the object and that users just printing the value of users dictionary. You will get the default output in the form of key value pair onto the output screen. Now let's run it one by one, right? So first of all, we have to, I'm going to copy this class MyLibrary and this first function, right here, add user function, and I'm pasting it here inside my online Python compiler. So here class MyLibrary, then one default constructor. Over here just I'm declaring one users dictionary to store all the users related information in it. Then I'm writing the definition, right, add users, and this is the logic of add users. Then after that I want to write a logic of show function. So I'm copying it and I'm pasting it over here. you have to just keep it in mind that whenever you are going to type a code inside the Python, indentation matters a lot, right? So this is the indentation, how the scope of every line inside the Python programming. Then I'm writing the show user function. So inside my library there is one constructor, there is one member function add user, there is another member function show user. Now what we want to do, we want to create an object and we want to call these 4 times, and then we want to display without using show user function, we want to display the record. Now let's see, we are creating here an object and then I'm just calling this 1 times. Let's see what will happen onto the output screen. Now here I am pasting it. As it comes to know that here I have created one object, that is leave1 is equals to my library, and I want to pass this information to the add user function. So inside comment I have written this, and then leave1 add users 11 and run. Now I am executing this code. You just see over here, name my library is not defined. Did you mean my library, right? So the spelling mistake, class spelling mistake is there. Just correct it out. So whatever the class name, just copy it, right? And at the time of object creation, just paste the same name, whatever the name you have taken over here, take this name over here, right? So my library, once again you have to execute it. So one time we have called leave1 add users 11 and run. It comes to know that user with user id 11 added successfully in the my library, right? So this function gets called here, and user with user id 11 added successfully, this message gets displayed onto the output screen. Now next time what I want to do, I want to call one more time that leave1 dot add underscore users function for the second record, that is Sham, right? Now execute it one more time. You comes to know that, see the output, user with user id 11 added successfully first call, then user with user id 12 added successfully in the my library. Now user id 11 is already exist inside the my library, so just check it out. We are calling one more time this add users functions with the same id, user id with a different username, right? Jairam. So once again you have to execute it, and you comes to know that user with user id 11 added successfully first time, user with user id 12 added successfully in the my library, and then we get the message user with user id 11 already exists in the my library. So that information 11 Jairam is not going to be stored inside the my users dictionary, right? So it comes over here and it check user id in self.users, yes, which is present over there. So user with user id 11 already exists in the my library. Now next time when we are calling one more time, when we are going to call this add user function for the different record, that is 13, and you can say username is what, Rohit. So when we are calling this function one more time for the different data with a different id, it will get executed, and that information is going to be stored inside the users dictionary. Now let's check it out. So here we comes to know that user with user id 11 added successfully, 12 added successfully, 11 already exists in the my library, and 13 added successfully in the my library. Now how that information is going to be stored inside the users dictionary, if you want to print it, so simply write print, what is the object name, that is leave1 dot, where that information is going to be stored, it is going to be stored inside the users dictionary. Just type that name over here, and one more time you have to run this code. You comes to know that here users with user ID 11 added successfully, 12 added successfully, 11 already exists in the MyLibrary. User with user ID 13 added successfully in the MyLibrary. And whenever we are going to display these dictionaries values, so it comes to know that key is 11, value is Ram, key is 12, value is Sham, key is 13, value is Rohit. Here that 11 Jairam is not going to be stored inside the user dictionary, right? With the help of this add user logic, we are avoiding the same ID, right, to store inside the user dictionary, or to make the same ID as a member inside the MyLibrary class, right? So here, if we observe carefully, we comes to know that this information is going to be stored by default inside the key value pair inside the users dictionary. But what if we want to display this record as per the user's logic, right? However we want like this: user ID 11, username Ram; user ID 12, username Sham; user ID 13, username what we can say Rohit. So if I want to display like this, so you have to write down the logic for this like this, and then you have to call this function, right? So here I am writing print /n after calling show users function, right? And the output is like this, right? So lib1 dot show underscore users, just give a call to this function, and it comes to know this. See, here is the output, right? First of all, we are calling the add user function 4 times, so 4 times we'll get this output: user with user ID 11 added successfully, 12 added successfully, 11 already exists in the library, 13 added successfully in the MyLibrary. Then by default, how the values are going to be stored inside the user dictionary, we are displaying it. And then after calling show user function, you will get the output like this: member inside the MyLibrary are as follow: user ID 11, username Ram; user ID 12, username Sham; user ID 13, username Rohit. So as per the user requirement, how we want to display this information, we have to write down the logic inside the defined member function, and accordingly you will get the output like this. So likewise, here I have created one class with the one constructor, default constructor, and here we have created one users dictionary, empty dictionary, for storing the users record. So for storing that users record, we are writing one function, that is add users. And to show the details of these users, we are writing show users function, and then we are creating the object of this class. And if you want to store 4 records, then 4 times you have to call this function add users functions. And then by default, how the information is going to be stored inside the users dictionary, that we are showing over here at line number 42: print lib1 dot users. And as per the user requirements, how we want to show that record, so that logic we are written inside the show users, and accordingly we are displaying this value onto the output screen, so like this, right? Now if you observe here carefully, then add users function is going to be called for 4 times, right? What if I want to add 10 or 20 or 100 students record, users record inside the users dictionary? So can I make 100 times call like this? I have to write the repeatedly the same instructions 100 times? No, obviously not. Then what is the other alternative, that you have to write down the same code, right? So you have to use the looping logic over here. First of all, you have to ask, right, how many users record you want to store by using the input function. So accordingly, here I am writing /n, right? How many users information you want to store or add or register inside MyLibrary, right? So accordingly we'll get the value over here 4, 5, 6 likewise. And then by using the for loop for I in a range n, you have to write it down. First of all, you have to accept user ID from the user input, enter user ID, right? Then you have to accept username from the user, simply calling the input function, and here you have to ask session enter username, right? So we are having user ID and username with us. Then by using the object of this class lib1 dot, write down the function name, add users, and here you have to pass uid comma uname, right? So this is the alternative way to pass this information inside the user dictionary by using the for loop. Now let's try to execute this. So by default this 4 times this function is going to be called, and after that whatever the n values we are giving at the runtime, accordingly this for loop is going to be executed, and these values are going to be stored inside the user dictionary. Now let's see it. So user with user ID 11 added successfully, 12 added successfully, 11 already exists in the MyLibrary. User with user ID 13 added successfully in the MyLibrary. Now here, after that, after calling it 4 times, here after calling it 4 times, how many users information you want to store or add or register inside MyLibrary, that message is going to be displayed. Why? Because after calling this, immediately I have written at line number 42, I have written these instructions, right? So at the runtime he is going to ask how many users information you want to add. I am saying 2 students information or 2 users information. So he's asking me the user ID, and I am writing 14. Then I am writing the noun, username is what, Sita. Then 15, and the username is what, Gita, right? Now see, users with user ID 15 added successfully in the MyLibrary, and then by default these values, key value pairs are going to be stored inside the users dictionary, like 11 Ram, 12 Sham, 13 Rohit, 14 Sita, 15 Gita. And after calling show user functions as per user requirement, all these details are going to be displayed as per our requirement, right? So that's it, how to add an user information inside the MyLibrary class, and how to display it. That part we have covered over here. Then how to add and book information and how to display that book information, we will see it in the next video. So if you have any doubt up to this, you can directly WhatsApp me that doubt and you can ask it to me, right? Once you have written this for loop and like this, then there is no need to write down or to call the add user functions like this, right? Just for sake of understanding, I have written it over here. Once you comes to know that how we are storing the information inside the users dictionary, then just use this for loop only, right? So thank you very much.